She didn't knock. She didn't ask. She went straight for her phone and dialed 911 on me for standing in my own driveway. And the craziest part? It wasn't even 6 a.m. The engine in my truck was still ticking as it cooled. Morning fog hung low over the street. Birds were just starting their noise. And there she was, barefoot, silk robe flapping in the wind, storming across my lawn like I'd committed a felony. She slammed her palm against my driver's side window. Hard. Move this junk. Right now, she snapped, lips tight, eyes already glowing with victory. Or I'm calling the cops. I didn't argue. Didn't explain. Didn't even open the door. I just looked at her and watched her dial. Her perfume seeped through the cracked window, sharp and overwhelming. Gravel crunched under my tires as I shifted slightly. And she smiled. Not a friendly smile. The kind that says I've done this before, and I always win. 5 minutes later, red and blue lights washed over the oak trees lining the street. A patrol car rolled to a stop. The officer stepped out, glanced at her, then looked at me. Morning, Chief. I swear the color drained from her face so fast I thought she might collapse right there in my driveway. And that moment? That was only the beginning of her problems. Ever had someone call the cops on you for doing something completely legal? Drop it in the comments. Because this 911 call didn't end with a warning. It ended with federal eyes watching everything she touched. Let me rewind. My name's Garrett Boone. Most people call me Bo. I'm 43, and I've worn a badge for 18 years. 6 months ago, I was promoted to Chief of Police for Willow Ridge County, population 67,000. Not a massive department. 32 officers. A few detectives. Enough paperwork to bury me alive. But it's my town. I grew up here. I know every back road and shortcut. When my mom passed last year, I bought her house. The one I grew up in. A 1960s ranch on Oakmont Drive. Working class neighborhood. Chain link fences. Big old oak trees that never stop shedding leaves. The driveway's L-shaped, one arm to the detached garage, the other a wide parking pad. My mom used to let neighbors turn around in it. I kept that tradition until she moved in next door. Cassidy Whitmore. 51. Luxury real estate. Consultant. Timeshares, basically. Platinum blonde hair that could survive a hurricane. French-tipped nails always tapping her phone. A leased Mercedes she definitely stretched her budget for. She bought the Colonial next door 6 months ago. White columns. Bigger house. And something about my place clearly bothered her. First week, she knocked with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Your oak tree drops leaves in my yard, she said. You need to trim it. I rested my hand on the trunk. Rough bark. Warm from the sun. 100 years old, sitting right on my property line. I'll rake your yard weekly if you want, I said. Her smile went thin. I'm sure we can find a more permanent solution. Week 3, it escalated. I came home from night shift just before dawn. Coffee cold in the cup holder. Parked my '85 Bronco, forest green, restored it myself, on the pad like I always had. 47 minutes later, pounding on my door. Silk robe again. Your truck is an eyesore, she said. Park it in the garage or on the street. It's my driveway, I replied calmly. No HOA here. Vehicle's legal and registered. She crossed her arms. I have important clients this weekend. That thing lowers my property value. I'm not moving it. Her heels clicked like gunshots as she stormed away. I thought that was the end of it. I was wrong. Because that night, she made a call that would flip her entire life upside down. I should have trusted that feeling in my gut. The one that whispered, "This isn't over." That evening, just after sunset, I pulled back into the same spot. Same driveway. Same legally parked Bronco. The air smelled like cut grass and warm asphalt. I hadn't even closed my door when her front porch light snapped on. Cassidy appeared instantly. Phone already raised. Already dialing. Ma'am, I said, keeping my voice level. This is my property. I'm not breaking any laws. She didn't look at me. Didn't acknowledge me. She spoke loudly, clearly, so I could hear every word. There's a suspicious vehicle blocking access, she told the dispatcher. The driver is refusing to move. I feel threatened. Threatened. By a parked truck. I recognized the dispatcher's voice immediately. Stella. 15-year veteran. Calm, sharp, unshakable. I could hear the confusion in her pause when Cassidy gave the address. I pulled out my own phone and called non-emergency. Stella, I said quietly. It's Bose, send an officer. I want this documented. Cassidy's head snapped toward me. Her eyes narrowed. You're lying. 10 minutes later, headlights swept across the driveway. Officer McNally stepped out. My old partner. We'd worked night shifts together for years. He listened while Cassidy unloaded her story, hands flying, voice full of practiced outrage. She stood there radiating smug satisfaction, like she'd finally trapped me. Then McNally turned to me. Chief, you need anything else? The word hit the air like a dropped plate. Chief. Cassidy froze. Her mouth opened. Closed. Opened again. Chief? She whispered. Yes, ma'am, McNally said professionally. You just called 911 on the chief of police for parking legally in his own driveway. Her face went white. Not pale. White. I want your supervisor, she snapped, scrambling. McNally didn't miss a beat. You're looking at him. The silence after that felt heavy. The streetlight buzzed overhead. Somewhere down the block, a sprinkler hissed rhythmically. The smell of fresh grass mixed with motor oil hung in the air. McNally cleared the call. No violation. Logged and closed. As he drove away, Cassidy stood in her driveway, staring at me like she was recalculating everything. Then she smiled. Not the fake realtor smile. Something colder. You think a badge makes you special? She said. I know people. Important people. This isn't over. Her heels clicked sharply as she walked back inside. I stood there long after her door slammed shut. That was the moment I realized something critical. She wasn't embarrassed. She wasn't scared. She was angry. And angry people with money, connections, and entitlement don't back down. They escalate. Inside my house, I opened my laptop and created a folder. Simple name. Neutral. Dates. Times. Witnesses. Photos. Call logs. Everything. My gut told me I'd need it. Over the next 10 days, Cassidy stopped being loud and started being strategic. She couldn't claim illegal parking anymore, so she hunted for new angles. The first one came on a Saturday morning. I was mowing my lawn. Electric mower. Barely louder than a vacuum. The sun was just high enough to burn off the dew when my phone buzzed. Dispatch. Chief, we got a noise complaint for your address. I killed the mower. Just stood there, grass clippings sticking to my shoes. You're serious? Wish I wasn't. Officer Ramirez pulled up a few minutes later, trying, and failing, not to grin. He checked his tablet. Noise ordinance allowed from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. on weekends. It was 10 a.m. No violation. But it was logged. Official record. Exactly what she wanted. As Ramirez drove off, I saw her curtain shift just enough to let me know she'd been watching the whole time. That night, I opened a notebook and wrote my first entry. Date. Time. Complaint. Officer. Outcome. Something told me this list was about to get long. And I had no idea yet just how far she was willing to go. By the fourth entry in that notebook, a pattern started forming. Not loud. Not obvious. Carefully designed to look reasonable. Cassidy wasn't trying to win anymore. She was trying to bury me in paperwork. 4 days after the noise complaint, I pulled into my driveway and noticed something that didn't belong. A man standing in my yard. Tripod set. Measuring rod extended. bright orange vest with a company logo I didn't recognize. I cut the engine and stepped out slowly. "Can I help you?" He turned, startled. Mid-30s. Sunburned neck. Clipboard hugged to his chest like a shield. I'm here for a boundary verification," he said, flipping the clipboard around. "Work order says your fence may be encroaching 4 inches onto the neighboring property." 4 inches. I looked at the fence. Same fence I'd climbed as a kid. Same fence my dad painted every other summer. Same fence that had been standing there since 1973. "She hire you?" I asked. He nodded. Didn't meet my eyes. I didn't argue. Didn't raise my voice. I walked inside, opened my filing cabinet, and pulled out a manila folder still crisp from 6 months earlier. Certified county survey. Embossed seal. Official measurements. Property pins photographed and logged. I handed it to him. He compared the numbers. Once. Twice. His brow furrowed. "Yeah," he finally said. "Your fence is exactly where it's supposed to be." Relief flickered across his face. Like he'd been hoping for that answer. "I'll let her know," he said quickly, already packing up. I watched him leave, then walked straight back inside and added another line to the notebook. Unauthorized survey attempt. 2 days later, certified mail arrived. I didn't even need to open it to know who it was from. Cassidy Whitmore. Inside, a formal demand letter. Remove the fence within 30 days or face legal action. No greeting. No discussion. Just threats. I forwarded it to an old friend of mine, civil attorney, owes me a favor or two. He called me an hour later, laughing. "She's bluffing," he said. "And she hired a garbage surveyor." He drafted a response for free. Attached my certified survey, the original building permit, and a polite suggestion that she verify her contractor's credentials before escalating further. Out of curiosity, I Googled the survey company she used. The reviews were brutal. Manufactured disputes. Inflated claims. Homeowners pressured into lawsuits. A pattern so obvious it hurt. I'd seen this before during my years on the force. Shady surveyors who told clients exactly what they wanted to hear, for a price. Cassidy hadn't been mistaken. She'd been shopping for an answer. And when she didn't get it, she doubled down. That week, the calls increased. Parking complaint, again. No violation. Trash cans. Visible from the street. No ordinance. Motion light. Shining into her bedroom. Adjusted angle. Logged anyway. Each one legal. Each one documented. Each one another brick in the paper trail she thought would protect her. But what she didn't know was that documentation cuts both ways. Because while she was building a case against me, I was building something much bigger. Something that didn't involve city code. Or neighborhood disputes. Or even my badge. Late one night, as I flipped through my growing file, a name caught my eye on one of the reports. A contractor Cassidy had referenced casually. Not the surveyor. Another name. Another company. And I recognized it instantly. Because I'd seen it before. On a federal task force bulletin. And that's when I realized. This wasn't just a neighbor feud anymore. It was the beginning of something far messier. And far more dangerous for her. That name wouldn't leave my head. I stared at it on the report long after midnight, the house quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator and the ticking clock above the stove. Same contractor. Same LLC. Same spelling. I'd seen it 6 months earlier in a briefing packet marked Do Not Distribute. At the time, it was tied to an investigation involving falsified permits, kickbacks, and something much uglier, using nuisance complaints and manufactured disputes to pressure homeowners into selling under market value. It wasn't proof. Not yet. But it was enough to make my instincts flare. The next morning, I didn't put on the uniform. I put on jeans, a flannel, and drove downtown, not to my office, but to records. I pulled public filings. Business registrations. Complaint histories. And there it was. Cassidy's consulting work intersected with that contractor more than once. Same shell companies. Same mailing address. Different names. Too clean. Too quiet. Back home, I added a new section to the notebook. Potential financial motive. That's when the HOA angle surfaced. Oakmont Drive didn't have one, but Cassidy had been circulating flyers. Interest survey. Community standards discussion. Nothing official yet, but enough to start laying groundwork. She wasn't trying to control the street. She was trying to create leverage. 3 days later, she knocked on my door again. This time, she smiled. Too wide. Too rehearsed. "I think we got off on the wrong foot," she said. "I'm just trying to improve the neighborhood." I nodded. Let her talk. She mentioned property values. Unified appearance. Even casually floated the idea of a voluntary HOA. Voluntary. For now. I declined. Politely. Her eyes hardened for half a second before the smile snapped back into place. That night, another call came in. This one wasn't local police. It was the county zoning office. Anonymous complaint. Alleged unpermitted modifications to my garage. They scheduled an inspection. Still legal. Still fine. But now I knew. She was escalating outside the neighborhood. Outside the city. That's when I made my next move. I called a friend, not law enforcement this time. Someone in state compliance. Gave him the names. The LLCs. The surveyor. The contractor. Didn't ask for favors. Just asked him to take a look. 2 days later, he called me back. His tone had changed. "Bo," he said slowly, "how close are you to this woman?" "Next door," I said. Silence. Then, "Don't confront her. Don't warn her. And document everything." I hung up and stared out the window. Cassidy was in her driveway, talking on the phone, pacing, laughing like nothing was wrong. She had no idea. Because while she thought she was tightening the noose around me, she'd accidentally stepped into a spotlight she couldn't see. And once you're in that light, there's no hiding. Not even behind fake complaints. Or silk robes. Or smiles that don't reach the eyes. From that point on, I stopped reacting. I started waiting. Because people like Cassidy don't quit when they think they're winning. They get careless. The zoning inspection came and went. Clean. No violations. The inspector even apologized for the inconvenience. Another entry in the notebook. Another brick. Cassidy, on the other hand, grew bolder. She stopped pretending this was about neighborhood harmony. She started testing limits. One afternoon, I came home to find bright orange notices taped to my fence. Potential code violation, subject to review. No signature. No case number. No department seal. Fake. I peeled one off, photographed it, and bagged it. That night, a car idled across the street longer than it should have. Tinted windows. Engine running. When I stepped outside, it rolled away. Coincidence? Maybe. But patterns don't lie. 2 mornings later, another 911 call hit dispatch. This one claimed a possible domestic disturbance at my address. That crossed a line. Officer Ramirez responded again. This time his jaw was tight. "No issue," he said quietly once we stepped aside. "But this is getting flagged." Good. Because false emergency calls aren't just annoying. They're criminal. And the state takes them very seriously. By now, the file on my laptop was thick. Screenshots. Audio logs. Certified letters. Photos. Timelines. Connections. I sent a secure packet to my contact in compliance. This time, he didn't wait days to respond. "Federal interest confirmed," he wrote back. "Do not interfere." That was the moment I understood the scale of it. Cassidy wasn't just harassing a neighbor. She was using emergency services, zoning complaints, fake notices, and pressure tactics as part of a broader operation. And I was standing right in the middle of it. A week later, she made her biggest mistake. She tried to recruit me. She caught me by my truck one evening, all smiles again, voice soft. "You're a reasonable man," she said. "You understand how these things work. If we're forming an HOA, having someone like you on board would smooth everything out." There it was. The offer. Control disguised as cooperation. I told her I'd think about it. Her eyes lit up. That night, I forwarded the conversation, word for word, to the compliance team. They replied with one sentence. "That's solicitation." From then on, everything accelerated. Unmarked cars started appearing on the street. Phone calls Cassidy thought were private weren't. Her carefully curated world started cracking under scrutiny she never imagined. And she still had no idea. She thought she was dealing with a stubborn neighbor. She had no clue she triggered an investigation that didn't end with a warning. It ended with indictments. And the knock that was coming next wasn't going to be on my door. The knock came on a Thursday. Just after 7 a.m. Not loud. Not aggressive. Calm. Professional. The kind of knock that doesn't ask, it informs. I was already awake, coffee in hand, watching the street through the front window. 2 unmarked SUVs. 3 men. 1 woman. Dark jackets. No visible badges yet. They didn't come to my door. They went next door. Cassidy answered in workout clothes. Perfect posture. Confident smile already loading. I couldn't hear the words. But I didn't need to. I saw the moment it hit her. The way her shoulders stiffened. The way her smile flickered then vanished. The way she glanced, just once, toward my house. One of them handed her a folder. Thick. She tried to speak. Laughed nervously. Gestured back toward the house. They didn't move. Then the cuffs came out. Slow. Deliberate. Not for show. Neighbors started stepping onto porches. Phones came up. Whispers spread. Cassidy's voice carried this time. "This is a misunderstanding." It wasn't. They guided her toward the SUV as she protested, still trying to negotiate, still trying to control the narrative. I took a sip of my coffee. Didn't move. Didn't smile. Because this wasn't about revenge. It was about accountability. Later that afternoon, I got the call. Multiple charges. False emergency reports. Fraud. Conspiracy. Obstruction. Her consulting business? A shell. The surveyor? Under investigation. The contractor? Already cooperating. And the HOA idea? A pressure tool. Meant to scare people into selling. It had worked before. Just not this time. By sunset, her house was dark. For sale sign went up 3 weeks later. Quietly. No open house. No staging photos. Just gone. The street exhaled. The notebook went into my safe. Not as a trophy. As a reminder. Because power doesn't always look loud. Sometimes it looks like a neighbor with a phone. And sometimes the most dangerous people aren't criminals in alleys. They're the ones who smile, complain, and think the system exists for their convenience. I parked my Bronco in the driveway that night. Same spot. Same truck. Same quiet street. Only difference? The silence felt earned. And the system she tried to weaponize? It finally did what it was meant to do. A month passed. No complaints. No letters. No strange cars idling at the curb. Just quiet. The kind of quiet you don't notice until it's been missing for a long time. One evening, I stood in the driveway, leaning against the Bronco, watching the sun drop behind the oak trees. The same trees Cassidy once wanted trimmed, removed, controlled. Leaves drifted down slowly, landing exactly where they wanted to. I thought about how close this all came to going sideways. If I hadn't documented everything. If I hadn't stayed calm. If I'd reacted emotionally instead of methodically. People like Cassidy rely on one thing above all else: Intimidation through exhaustion. They count on you getting tired, getting sloppy, giving in just to make it stop. That's how they win. A few weeks later, I was called in to give a formal statement. Federal building. Plain room. Flag in the corner. The agent across from me closed his folder and said something that stuck. She picked the wrong house. He was right. Not because I'm the police chief, but because I knew the system well enough to let it work, without abusing it back. Oakmont Drive never did get an HOA. The flyers disappeared. The whispers stopped. And the neighborhood went back to borrowing ladders and waving from driveways. Sometimes, I see comments online saying people like her get away with it all the time. Sometimes they do. But not always. Sometimes they trip over their own confidence. Sometimes they mistake silence for weakness. And sometimes, the person they try to bully knows exactly how to build a paper trail that leads straight back to them. I still park in the same spot. Still wave to the same neighbors. Still mow my lawn on Saturday mornings, electric mower and all. And every now and then, when I hear a siren in the distance, I think about how one phone call can change everything. Especially when you don't know who's standing on the other side of it. So if you're dealing with a neighbor like that, document everything. Stay calm. Don't escalate. Because the truth has a way of catching up. And when it does, it doesn't knock softly.